We're live. All right, everybody, welcome to the, don't make me use this. Oh, I did, but, you know. Good morning. Welcome to September 24th, 2025, Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, Placer County Airport Land Use Commission, Western Placer Consolidated Transportation Services Agency, Placer County Local Transportation Authority. She filled in for me while we had the State of the City and why I couldn't come to the August meeting. So Supervisor Jones, would you lead us in the flag salute?
Please join me. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, and thanks for filling in. And we didn't have a July meeting, and I'm not even sure if I was here at the June meeting, but I'm sure the minutes will reflect that. Solveig, will you call the roll?
We'll do that. Broadway.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Cortez.
Present.
DiMattei.
Here.
Dowden Calvillo.
Present.
Howdeshelt.
Here.
Jones. Here. Wilkins.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right, and will you read the meeting procedures for us?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Agendas are available on the back table here in the board chambers or available on the PCTPA website. If you would like to speak during the meeting, please direct your comments to the board. If you're here in person, we ask that you come to the podium as this meeting is being recorded. If you're joining us by Zoom, you can signal you wish to speak by using the raise hand button. If you're on the phone, press *9 and we'll call on people in the order requests are received. If you would like to comment on an item that is not listed on the agenda, please do so under public comment. The Brown Act requires the public have an opportunity to comment on every item on the agenda. We ask that you please keep your comments to 3 minutes and invite you to consider stating your name for the record this morning. Your time will be monitored. If you're speaking at the podium, a yellow light will turn on to let you know you have 1 minute left to wrap up. For those participating online, you'll hear a beep when you have 1 minute remaining. Thank you for your participation this morning.
Thank you very much, Solveig. That takes us to agenda review. Anything new, revised?
Agenda remains unchanged, Chair.
All right, and now we're going to move to the AB 2449 disclosure. If there are any board members that need to disclose anything, or Matt, this
No
is
board
definitely
action
your
necessary.
name. Do it. All right, great. That takes us to the approval of the April 27th, 2025 minutes. Are there any revisions, changes?
Move approval.
Did I say April?
I was waiting for the correction, yeah?
Okay,
We knew what you meant.
Starts with an A.
all right, starts with an A.
That
About the
amen.
August 27th, 2025. We have a motion by Dowden
I'll second.
Calvillo and second by Jones. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, those abstaining. I'm going to sign it, but I wasn't here. Should I abstain?
You don't have to abstain. The rules don't require it.
Good. That next brings us to the portion of the agenda for public comment, and this is where we have an opportunity for persons to address the board on items not on the agenda. Do we have anyone in the audience? Do we have anyone online? We have no one online. All right. That brings us to the consent calendar for the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. These items are expected to be routine in nature and non-controversial. They'll be acted upon by the board with one action without discussion. A board member, staff member, or interested citizen may request an item to be removed from the consent calendar for discussion. We have 2 items. Anyone want to remove anything? Any members of the audience? Any staff members? Motion.
I move to approve. I'll second.
Moved by Amanda.
Get rusty.
Can we approve the April meeting? We'll get there. Approved by, motion by Cortez, second by Jones, was it?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right. The next brings us to our 9 a.m. public hearing on Village 7 specific plan, minor amendments, consistency determination, and David Milko's presentation.
Good morning, members of the commission. We're asking you to conduct a public hearing regarding the Village 7 specific plan minor amendments, and we're recommending that you find the Village 7 specific plan minor amendments consistent with the airport land use compatibility plan, subject to a prior specific plan condition that the ALUC had recommended regarding residential overflight notification. And lastly, authorize the executive director to submit a consistency determination to the city of Lincoln.
David, one second. We're looking at black screens here. I've seen the PowerPoint that came out earlier, so I just want to make sure. Does the commission want to see the PowerPoint as it's presented? Could you give us 1 second?
Okay, all right. Moving forward. Okay, so just for the audience, just the role of the Land Use Commission. So. Oh, okay. Okay. Your role is to adopt and maintain the airport land use compatibility plan, and also to review changes to various plans, zoning regulations, and other land use regulations near airports. And in looking at consistency, there are 4 factors that we look at. We look at noise, safety, airspace protection, that's height, building height, and overflight. You have 3 potential choices. You can find it consistent. You can find it consistent subject to recommendations, conditions, or you can find it inconsistent based on specific conflicts. Okay, this is the Village 7 approved specific plan, and with an overlay of the airport land use compatibility zones. You'll notice on the upper left-hand portion of the specific plan area, there's a minor area that's within compatibility zone C1. The specific plan shows this area as park open space. The majority of the northern portion of the specific plan area is in Zone D, and Zone D, just as a reminder, is a very flexible compatibility zone, allowing a lot of uses that are restricted in zones closer to the airport. So, the City of Lincoln requested Airport Land Use Commission review of the specific plan to make a determination of consistency. The applicant is Lincoln Land Holdings, and they're proposing to do some land use changes, you might call them land use swaps, proposed to relocate an approved elementary school site from the south side of Ferrari Ranch Road to the north side of Ferrari Ranch Road. The acreage for the sites differ. With the swap, the new location will allow the city to not only have the elementary school, but also have a joint use public park. So, as part of this shift, the former school site, which is south of Ferrari Road, and I'll have a map in the next slide, that site will be designated as medium-density residential. That site, of course, is smaller than the site that was to the north, so that means a portion of another 18.6-acre community park will be redesignated as low-density residential. In this slide, it's a little bit difficult to kind of see it, but I've outlined it. So the blue area is, with the red outline, is now the proposed elementary school site. South to the site to the south is now medium-density residential. And further south, outside compatibility zone D, is the former community park that now has a redesignation of very low density residential. So, in terms of the consistency, the 4 factors: noise. The land use changes do not fall within the airport's 60 decibel noise contour, so there's no noise impacts to proposed residential or the school sites. Safety. The land use changes are considered compatible uses because they fall within compatibility zone D, and zone D is the least restrictive of the compatibility zones and allows both residential and school uses. Airspace protection. There are no height issues proposed with these buildings. To have an airspace issue, you'd have to be well over 150 feet in building height, and that's not the case here. And overflight. So these land use changes are in compatibility zone D. However, the ALUC has looked at this determined this specific plan consistent several years ago. And as part of that overall consistency of the specific plan, they recommended that the overflight notification be for all residential uses. And because of that, we're recommending that these land use changes, the residential uses, continue to have that overflight notification. So most of the uses fall outside of Zone D, and where, like I had indicated, there's a broad range of uses that are allowable. A small portion falls within Zone C1, but that's not impacted by the land use changes. The ALUC had reviewed this in 2013 and 2016 and had overflight notification as part of a condition. And so that's what we're recommending with these land use changes. And the bottom line is we're not creating, the applicant and the city are not creating any new compatibility impacts. So recommend that you conduct a public hearing. We recommend that you find the Village 7 specific plan minor amendments consistent, subject to the residential overflight notification, and you authorize the executive director to submit a consistency letter to the City of Lincoln. We do have staff from the City of Lincoln here, Michaela Noble, and so in case if there's any questions, and then we also have the applicant here as well with Lincoln Land Holdings, Phil Rodriguez. Thank you.
Commission, any questions of staff?
I just wanted to confirm the city of Lincoln is on board.
Well, let's ask. Michaela?
Yes. Will you come up?
You want?
Yeah,
Please.
it's recorded.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. Michaela Noble, Associate Planner with the City of Lincoln Community Development Department. I'm the assigned project planner for this project, and we are on board with these changes. It's a minor amendment that we're processing, and this is one of the steps we have to do before we can confirm approval. But if we receive that consistency determination, we will be on board with approving.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Anything else you wanted to add to staff's presentation?
I think David covered it. Relatively simple land use changes that we're proposing, really a swap and a little bit of additional residential to the project, so no major changes that we're seeing. So hopefully we can get that consistency determination and move forward.
Great, thank you very much. I'll ask the applicant if they want to add anything. The hand signal, I wasn't sure what that meant, but I think he was waving off the opportunity. All right, we'll bring it back for any final comments, questions, or a motion? Seeing none, I'll take a motion.
Second.
All right, moved. This is throwing me off now. Moved by Brown, seconded by DiMattei. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that passes. Next, we'll hear from our Fiscal Administrative Officer on the FY 25-26 overall work plan and budget amendment 1. Jody.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. This morning I'm going to present to you the first amendment of our overall work program and budget. As you know, the budget is a fluid document, and this amendment contains known changes that had occurred since you adopted the final last May. And this amendment is a collaborative effort between all staff at PCTPA. It has been reviewed by the TAC and by Caltrans local assistance. So there's three big changes that have been included in this amendment. First is a Placer Sacramento Gateway Plan grant that we received for $520,000, and we are also receiving a portion of the match from Sacramento Transit Authority. And the second new work element is work element 65, and that is to track the expenses for the State Route 65 Express toll lane widening. And the last big change is we have a staff who has postponed retirement, and so we added that 0.5 FTE back into the budget and have amended the staff hours based on the current workload. And this is just a look at the overall work plan and budget from the final to this first amendment. The revenue changes, we did see a slight reduction, $43,000 in our local transportation funds, and that has been recorded in this budget. Also, you'll see a increase of $320,000, or $300,000 in state funding, and that includes the grants that we just received for the Sacramento Gateway Plan update. Federal funding adjusted a bit for their ATP grant. So that is our final year of this grant, and that was carryover funds that were added back in. And other increased is the State Route 65 toll lane work element, which is being funded by Sparta. And then also, as I mentioned, the salaries and expenses were adjusted according to new staff work element allocation, as well as the addition of the FTE. And on the direct costs, we had some increase of consultants for those two new work elements. This is a look at the OWP revenues and where the funds are coming from. 90% of these funds are on a reimbursement basis. And then a look at our expenditures, which remain very similar to what they usually are, with 96% going towards direct costs to the work elements, and the remaining 4% for over operating costs. And then here's a look at where our expenditures are by work element, and the top bar is, in the lighter color, is the first amendment, and the darker one is the original budget. It's not a lot of big changes there, other than the two new work elements. And then here's the remaining work elements. I couldn't fit them all on one slide. And that concludes my presentation. Staff recommends approval unless you have any other questions.
Commissioners, questions? Questions? Anybody in the public have any questions on the presentation? Okay. There's a member of the public physically here?
Zoom?
Online. Okay. Before we get to that, Jody, can you go back to that? Go back 4 slides, I think it is. Right there. So at the bottom, the note says surplus and deficit in paren.
Yes.
And maybe, this is just my blind spot, but when I see a red number, I always think of that as a deficit, and certainly in this case, it's bracketed. But, so, where was that going? So, oh, I see my fallacy. When you go from revenue to expenses, like in the direct, you have 1.15 million in surplus. Okay, never mind.
Okay.
Trying to form a question, answered my question. Okay, we'll hear from the public now.
Vasily, could you give me co-chair? Michael Garabedian, you're free to speak.
Good morning. Can I be heard now?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Michael Garabedian, Placer County tomorrow. I want to note that on the agenda, this is action item on page 19, and the next item is on page 24. which is impossible, of course, because this item looks like it's well over 100 pages. So there is no consistent numbering system for the entire budget. It's all different pieces slapped together without any indication of exactly what page of the whole packet we are on now or at any place on the agenda. So to go through it and put it together took a good long time to figure out what the package was for an entire part of the agenda or piece of the agenda, and then to figure out where you are in that. So this is a serious complaint about the way this agenda is put together and the ability to even use it and read it, much less comment on it, and I'm rather glad at least I was here to complain about this huge problem. Thank you for that opportunity. It's ridiculous.
Duly noted. Any other public comment?
No.
Ready to respond on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I can address it. You know, the pagination reflects the staff report, and the overall work plan is referenced in the staff report. So yes, in fact, it is 4 pages until we get to the next item, which includes the resolution. So I think that's an important clarification. Yeah, good. Solvi? All right, we will take a motion.
All right, I'll just quickly, thank you, Jody, for a great presentation, and with that, I will move approval.
I'll second.
Go ahead.
And there's a fight for the seconds down there. So I say Alice Cortez seconded it, right? No, Chair Broadway, Chair. Mr. Broadway moved, Amanda seconded. Roll call, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. That moves us to item J, State Route 65 Phase 1 Project Letter of Task Agreement with CH2M Hill Incorporated. Rick Carter.
Good morning, Board. Shown up on the slide is a exhibit of the Phase 1 project, just so everyone's clear what this is regard to. This is the outside widening of 65 between Blue Oaks and Galleria. So I think you all know this project has been in the works for a decade plus. A little bit of background. We did the environmental, started that work in 2015, and 2018 that was finished up, and the board moved forward with awarding a contract to CH2M Hill to do design work. That firm was later acquired by Jacobs. So by 2020, this kind of combination CH2M Hill and Jacobs had submitted 100% plans to Caltrans for the project. I think everyone's aware with the pandemic, we did not move forward with the sales tax measure, and this project was placed on hold, and it's kind of been sitting on hold since then. We were very happy in July of this year to get the build grant award for $22.5 million. And so with that, we need to go through and update the plans, various documents, so that we can get this project out to bid and out to construction and bring all those improvements to the public. So regarding the letter of task agreement itself, kind of the scope is summarized here. This is a Caltrans facility. We have to follow their requirements and their standards. In the intervening years, we've had a variety of standards that have changed. There is significant changes in terms of electrical systems, lighting, overhead sign requirements that require significant review and redesign. There's various reports that have to get updated, drainage, stormwater, similar things. We have to acquire permits from the regulatory agencies for the project. We also have to acquire construction easements from 2 parcels. One of those is privately owned. The other one is owned by the city of Roseville. So we've had discussions with them on dedicating that, and that'll come up a little bit later. The contract also includes providing bid support when the project's out to bid. So we get various questions and comments from contractors need to be responded to. Sometimes those result in changes. So that's included in there. So with this item, I've also asked the board to authorize about $150,000 in contingency funds because there are various sort of needs and risks associated with this. And I think for a contract of this size that is fairly large, I wanted to kind of explain a little bit of that. This has been sitting basically for 5 years at the Caltrans end. There's all new staff that's going to be looking at it. It's going to be reviewing it. We're not sure the level of changes we're going to be asked for on this. So there's some contingency for that. There's new requirements for basically trash capture devices within kind of the drainage and stormwater facilities. And we're getting some conflicting information from Caltrans of whether we're going to have to make those changes or not. So the current scope does not include that, but it may turn out that we have to make a variety of changes for that as well. And then kind of the last little bullet here is about schedule and temporary traffic control. So several years ago, the standards changed for temporary traffic control. This is the temporary barriers you see. You normally see the concrete barriers. So there were changes made several years ago. Those come into full effect on January 1st of 2027. Our plans as they are laid out now are fine. They comply with the standards in place. But should there be delays in this project, that it does not go to advertisement until 2027, so basically 16 months from now. If it goes to advertisement in 16 months instead of sooner, we'll have to make substantial changes to the plan, substantial cost to accommodate this. So one of the things is, one, I want to have dollars to that. The other item that's in here is the authority for the director, the executive director, to authorize change orders, basically, I shouldn't say change orders, to either amend or new letters of task agreement to get the project out. Because if we have changes that are unanticipated and I've got to take 6 weeks or 8 weeks, something of that nature to bring it back to this board with a 15-month time frame, it could be very costly. So we've been trying to get this thing together. In the last month, I've gone through about 4 different scope revisions with Jacobs. The scope that you have is in the packet, slightly changed from what we want to do today. So this slide shows some of the scope changes. Actually, all of the scope changes are kind of outlined. Task 1.5 was meetings with Caltrans, and I wanted to bump those up essentially to monthly meetings and go to 14. There was an item in there for an encroachment permit that was kind of a holdover from the original task. Because Caltrans is doing the construction, we don't really need an encroachment permit. So we pulled both those out. From a dollar standpoint, that was basically an even swap, so there's no change. And then we did make some changes to task 9, which is right-of-way coordination. I mentioned earlier, there's 2 parcels. One's the city of Roseville. Talking with management there, they intend to dedicate that. I had advised the consultant of that, their right-of-way consultant, in the prior version of the scope, completely pulled out any work related to that parcel. And I said, I don't need appraisals, I don't need appraisal reviews, but I do need an agreement. I need you to have an agreement that Roseville can execute, and that it can, that it can go to Caltrans, and Caltrans will identify that we have that. So they had to add that back in. So those are 2 changes to the scope shown in this slide here. It's a $3,500 difference. So from what's in the packet to what I'm going to ask you to approve today is an increase in scope of $3,500, a reduction, an equivalent reduction in the contingency amount, basically leaving the contract not to exceed amount the same. So these are the recommendations from the staff to the board. Kind of the numbers in green are the revisions from what's actually in your packet. Again, it's an increase of $3,500 to the letter of task agreement, an equivalent reduction in the contingency. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And we also have in the audience is Lauren Ranking. She's with Jacobs, and she's the project manager on this. So if there's any kind of deep dive technical questions, she'd be happy to answer those.
Commissioner Diamante, questions? All right. Any other commissioners?
Chair, yes, just
Yeah.
quickly, Sue, subject to approval today, Rick, when do you believe this will be able to be advertised?
We, our schedule is to advertise this in the fall of '26.
Okay. But so advertising fall of '26, so how do we prevent having the new regulations applied to us?
Yeah, so as long as we have that advertised before December 31st, and that advertisement gets awarded.
Okay, so
So-
what are the triggers for advertisement?
So the big thing on the schedule, I think the controlling item in the schedule is a combination of updating, we have to do what they call an environmental revalidation, and then we have to go get our regulatory permits. I think that's what I think is the critical path. We have plan changes to update, but I think 15 months is very adequate to have that work done. The environmental revalidation is actually being done under the 65 Express Toll Lane project, because both projects need environmental revalidation. That one's already underway, and that revalidation will cover both projects. So that's critical path on that contract. And then under this, they'll need to get the regulatory permits.
Okay, so subject to the board approving this today, what other assistance do you need from this body to ensure that this progresses? I have, for too long, 9 years now, having had the benefit of being able to serve Rockland residents as well as the county from this board perspective, but I've seen too many projects that go from X to Y dollars, which is a significant increase in expenses, which creates challenges for us in moving projects forward. So what do you need to ensure that this stays on track, that we don't become subject to additional unplanned or unwanted expenses?
Yeah, I think the critical item there is our coordination and work with Caltrans. And Matt, I think, has a very good relationship with the District 3 director, and we'll be relying, I think, a lot on that if we get, I would say, stalled at Caltrans to push this project forward.
Yeah, I would say Rick's exactly right as far as, the critical path, and a lot of this is going to be dependent on how quickly we can work and collaborate with District 3 to get all of the necessary approvals and get this through. I will say Rick and I are on biweekly calls with them right now for the State Road 65 Express Toll Lane, that environmental revalidation, from the executive level down to my terminology, sort of the second lieutenants that have a lot of authority. Those have gone very well. Staff all up and down the ladder are all in alignment and working towards this. They want to see this done. A little bit of an aside, a lot of them live in this corridor, but I don't right now, sitting here, foresee any challenges. But we all know what it's like, whether you're dealing with a gas and electric utility, a railroad, or somebody who's got a big regulatory stick. So we're just going to continue to work as best we can with those folks. And right now, it's green lights across the board. We're not worried right now.
Okay, perfect. I don't want to speak for my fellow board members, but I know we're all, from what I've heard from them, willing to lean in when necessary. And it's important, as we know, aligning with our goal of keeping Placer moving. This is one of the key next steps. So whatever we can do to keep it moving forward, and to do what, Matt, you always like to remind people, that we do things on time and on budget. And so we'd like to see that happen as well, without increasing that budget.
Yeah, no, that's right. We don't want to. No, staff sincerely appreciates that. And what I'll say is, as Rick alluded to in the recommendation, we won't wait for a board meeting to ask for help. We'll reach out, and everybody, we're very fortunate to have the dais that we have and the representation. So appreciate the open invitation to assist us if that assistance is needed. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to follow up on Mr. Broadway's comments. In the scope, tasks 3, 4, 5, and 6 all say scope of services complete. And so does that mean that we know where all the utilities are and we're not gonna encounter what we encountered with the auxiliary lane, where there was a discovery later, and we had a few go-rounds with a major utility. Does that mean we know where everything's buried?
I think we have a much better idea of where the utilities are buried in the state facilities, because there's a lot more control over that. Can I 100% guarantee you won't discover anything in the field? I cannot, but I think the odds of that are much, much, much lower, because we are dealing with, I would say, the areas inside of the state right away.
Okay, great. And could we go to that map that you had, which I think was your very first slide? Yeah, so between, I can't even read it, between Pleasant Grove and Galleria, it shows a lane on the outside. That's where the pavement will occur, but the express lane will actually be on the inside? Or am I an agenda item ahead?
You're conflating a little bit the two projects between the phase one, which is the outside widening, and then the express toll lane, which is the inside widening. So what this is showing is the phase one, which is strictly outside widening. It's an additional general purpose lane and an auxiliary lane. And ultimately, with the express toll lane project, we would add a lane to the inside, which isn't, it's not only is it not shown here, it doesn't really show the gap either in this exhibit, because there's really a gap between northbound and southbound.
Yeah, so to just chip in on this, between Pleasant Grove and Galleria, you're seeing two lines, because that second interior line represents the auxiliary lane for scope. Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
And that's all within the Caltrans right away?
Yep, that's all in Caltrans, and that's all part of the phase one project, which the 22.48 build funding is going to get us.
And I'm no, yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions from commissioners? Open if anyone here in the room want to comment, public comment? Okay, online we have public comment.
Michael Garabedian, you're free to speak.
Michael Garabedian, Placer County Tomorrow. Thank you for this opportunity to address this project. If I understand, the reevaluation is being done on a negative declaration earlier. I'm not sure. That would be a question to find out exactly what the reevaluation is addressing. And I oppose this as basically a kind of tinkering with the serious transportation problem there. I've called this highway recently a kind of a driveway because it's not a through highway, and it's not in any way adequate to address the coming population, much less the population that there's now. And this kind of project delays somebody sitting down and trying to figure out what to do to solve the problem, delays it for years to see what should be done, or what possibly can be done to relieve the long-term problem. And so, in effect, this action assists and helps with pulling the wool over the eyes of current residents, and certainly the future residents don't know they're going to be here to be in this traffic nightmare. It's just a good old supply and demand problem. You know, you create more supply and it fills right in. I don't know if there's any point really bringing up these points. I have for years, and it's fallen on deaf ears as near as I can tell. It's great that you have effective and staff to know the best they can to deal with this problem you're creating, and I congratulate them on their work. I think they're doing a terrific job with this. Well, I can't think of the right word for this project, and I think I'd better not. So I think we can all wish the people who will be driving this in the future good luck, but it is not a good situation for them, and I'm sorry that there is not some better planning going on, and I don't know who's going to do it, because you are not. Thank you.
Matt, would you like to address the environmental question, comment?
Yeah. So The revalidation is required for the NEPA document, and I believe that was an environmental assessment document. I'm not 100% certain.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
Just a general comment regarding some of this. One of the great benefits that we'll see on the second half of this project with the State Road 65 Express toll lane is it will be physically separated, and it will act sort of like a land bridge or a queue jump. So as all of that land use, including a new university, all of the housing that this region and the six-county Sacramento region desperately needs for our workforce, as all that comes online as Placer County's part of this affordable housing solution, that's going to generate more traffic. Roads unto themselves do not generate traffic. That is a misnomer. You can put a road on the moon, no one's going to drive on it. Land use and people generate traffic. Right now, the American Commute Survey says that less than half of 1% of people with their home-based work trip use public transportation in Placer County. That's a series of individual choices. So we do our very best to provide that public transportation and that option for those people who want to avail themselves of it. And when we put in the State Road 65 Express toll lane, one of the great things it will do is it will allow for express bus service to get out of those congested general purpose lanes and have a time savings. So when we think about 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, when we get 14 or 15,000 more homes and all this commercial development inside of this corridor and a university, right? How are we going to get those folks who want to use public transportation down to Watt I-80? Because we're not building light rail up here, I don't think, anytime soon. And we're going to do that through express bus service. And we're going to do that by putting those express buses on this corridor and the express toll lane component of projects like this. So we very much are thinking about future transit options for our public. And when they decide that they individually want to get on a bus, we will make sure we have the buses and the corridors for them to ride on. But outside of that, we can't force people to get on those buses. But we certainly do have a long-term vision for this that includes a lot of public transportation.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I just would add that certainly this is one element of our overall work plan. And I think there's a portion of Placer Parkway that's going to be coming online, which will take some of, it'll be a pressure relief valve. I think it unfortunately will put it, or it will increase the traffic on foothills and some of the surface streets in Roseville. And so it's part of the plan. And part of the challenge, I think, anecdotally, I think one of our former commissioners observed this, is that is not New York City, Dublin, Ireland, San Francisco level of congestion, and people are inconvenienced, not really stopped. I did see that. I'll leave it there.
No, yes, Chair, you're exactly right. And the average commute time right now in our county is 28 and a half minutes for an average commute. The national average is 28, Sacramento's in the 30s. So we're doing a great job, and we're going to continue to measure our progress based on holding the line on that average commute time as all this new land use comes online.
Any other public comment? Great, take a motion.
I move to approve.
All right, moved by Cortez, Commissioner Cortez, seconded by Dalton Cavillo. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. All right, thanks very much. Exciting. This is exciting. This is, I guess we should have thanked the congressman in there somewhere, right? But anyway, we'll move to item K, the Senate Bill 125 project status update.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board and public. This item is an information item. There will be no action requested of the board today. We are presenting this item because of the board's interest in this item, and the board has expressed an update. So we will provide you an update on the Senate Bill 125 program. Just a recap of the program itself. This was a program that was created from a trailer bill to the California budget that was passed back in fiscal year 23-24. That budget created two programs, one existing program that was expanded called the Transit Intercity Rail and Capital Improvement Program, or TIRCP, and then the Zero Emission Transit Capital Program was created. And basically these programs were created to fund transportation projects and investments that the state thought were critical to helping them achieve some of their goals related to climate climate adaptation, as well as other transit-focused projects. In this program, PCTPA received approximately $37.8 million, and PCTPA was designated as the Regional Transportation Planning Agency to administer the funds for this region. Just to recap on the two programs, the TIRCP program essentially can be used for large-scale infrastructure projects as well as operational projects to support transit operations, as well as their zero-emission fleet requirements and their conversion efforts. And then, of course, the ZETCP or ZETCP program was also created to fund projects that supported zero-emission transit vehicle purchases or infrastructure projects. A little bit of the actions that have been done since this bill was passed by staff administering the funds. Essentially, we were required, PCTPA, to submit an initial allocation request to the state. This is administered at the state level through the California State Transportation Authority, or CalSTA. We submitted an initial allocation request package for a little over $18 million back in 2023, which we have received. Our board actually followed up an action in October of 2024 where the board approved administrative guidelines on how PCTPA could distribute those funds that we received to the various projects that the board had considered when we submitted our initial allocation request, and I'll go over those in the next slide. And then we also submitted a second allocation request because we are required to administer these funds on an annual basis, and we submit an annual allocation request for a little over $8 million in February of 2025. And then again, this program is designed to allow a lot of flexibility to where we can, at any point when we're submitting an annual allocation request, we can change the program and projects. And so we haven't done any of those changes yet, but that is something we are administratively capable of doing. A little recap of the projects that were submitted in the initial allocation request package that have remained consistent since December of 2023. Off the top, PCTPA does receive a portion for administration. It's a one-time 1% of the funding available. There's several regional projects that this funding is going towards to the tune of $14.6 million. A lot of those projects are infrastructure-related projects related to some of our transit efforts to convert over to zero-emission technology, which is a requirement of our transit agencies. And then starting kind of with some of the funds that were administratively distributed to each transit operator, Auburn Transit projects, you have the purchase of some vehicles as well as infrastructure upgrades to help electrify or support their electrification of their fleet. For Placer County Transit, you have an assortment of both infrastructure projects and vehicle purchases to, again, support their operations here on the western slope as well as up in the Tahoe area. And then for Roseville, you have a couple bus replacement projects as well as some infrastructure projects related to supporting their transit service operations. And then just in terms of project updates to date, out of the $37.8 million that we've received, we've actually physically received a check or money, each allocation request, for about $26.46 million of that. So we've received a large pot of those funds that we are holding in a separate bank account that accrues interest, and that interest can also be used on these types of projects. We haven't determined where that interest is going yet, but we can bring that, of course, to the board at a later time. Auburn has actually been the first jurisdiction out of the gate to complete one of their projects and submit an allocation request. I'd like to acknowledge those efforts from staff, and we've actually distributed $350,000 to them for that project. Roseville and Placer County Transit are both actively acquiring buses, and they're purchasing an assortment of cutaways, electric vehicle or vans for their dial-a-ride services, as well as larger buses or heavy-duty buses for their fixed route services. And then we are actively, both PCTPA and our regional transit operators, working on planning work that can support the electrification of infrastructure through our zero-emission vehicle planning work, as well as our bus stop facilities assessment work. And again, these planning efforts will help determine where some of these SB 125 dollars will go in the future. So that is kind of just a snapshot. I wanted to provide the board with a brief update. I am available for any questions the board may have.
Questions from, yeah.
Question.
Mike, thank you for the report. So 350K of 26.46 million. First and foremost, is that a required purchase, so the expenditure is required and then reimbursed?
If I understand your question correctly, the agencies, based on the funding policies that this board adopted, do have to spend it first, and we reimburse them.
And so they submit that. Is that part of the reason we see a delay, or is it just the time frame, which everything seems to take in this state to get anything completed, is what's delaying that? Because again, I see 26.46 million, see a great list of projects, a little disappointed that I see minimal, I mean, almost rounding error use of those dollars.
Yeah, and to answer your question, yes, it does take, just for kind of frame of magnitude, to order a bus, it can take 12 to 24 months to manufacture a bus, and then they'll eventually get the bill for that, and then we can reimburse based on that. For these other larger scale infrastructure projects, there is planning work that we can reimburse. And so there is active planning work that's going on, not just the ones that's indicated on this slide, but there's active planning work going on each jurisdiction to electrify courtyards and spend the funds. And so they are actively working on that. Okay. But yeah, we just haven't seen the bills yet. Okay. And there is no limitation to how long we have to spend this money. It can continue to sit in our account and accrue interest as long as we're reporting that interest to the state, but there's no limitations on you have to spend the money in a certain time window.
Once allocated, I would say, is
Correct.
probably the concern I have is, again, the 26.46 million we have in hand, we have that available, it's in account, and we'll utilize. The additional 11 million is a bit concerning to me, given the fiscal state, or fiscal condition of our state. And so I'd hate to see that clawed back and then not being made available to us. So as quickly as we can, encourage all of these projects to move forward. We certainly want to do that, provide the support. I know the funding of the other steps that occur before purchase or construction, certainly getting those funds turned. Do you know how long it takes once, let's say, for example, electric vehicles are purchased for us to reimburse?
It's a relatively quick process. As soon as, 2 weeks, as soon as we get the bill.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was pretty fast for us, so yeah.
Okay, perfect. So shout out to everyone. We reimburse quickly, get the work done, and we've got great projects. Let's get those moving forward.
And if I could, through the chair, and just because, Director Broadway, you brought it up, be aware that of that 37.85, 10 million of that set aside is for CCGPA third track.
I did note that.
Okay, just, a large amount of this is for buses, and so that 350,000 will go to tens of millions real fast when the bills come in. We'll exhaust it and give everybody the money, but 10 million of that is for that project.
And unfortunately, in our recent board meeting for CCJPA, it was noted in our project plan that we're north of 400 million now for the total project cost for phase one of the third track.
Right. So we don't want to look around corners and get too worried, but if there were something that you raised, this fear of a clawback, right, that's the sort of conversation we'd have to bring to the board.
I think you raise a really important point, because you never know when a clawback is going to come. I mean, you just never know. So as quickly as we can. I mean, and I know for us, for example, we have, we're working on the charging infrastructure at the Nevada Street Courtyard and so forth. There's a lot that has to be done, but I think that that's something we should be delivering to all of our staff, that we just try to move on as quickly as possible so we don't lose those monies.
Other comments on the, okay. Opening for public comment on this item? No public comment. All right, great. I think that moves us to, Mike, are you gonna play the role of Corey today? Okay,
I've
Rick's
got
gonna
that.
play the role of Corey today, okay. Traffic volume update.
Yeah, traffic volume update. So, good morning, everyone. First off, I would just like to recognize all of Corey's good work on this. He couldn't be here today. He is working with county's emergency operations folks on an exercise related to our emergency transportation resiliency plan. So he couldn't be here, but this is all his good work. I'm just presenting. So we do this semi-annually. This is the data from June. So just kind of going over the data. First on the 65 corridor. So up at the top, this is AM peak average speeds. The table on the top is northbound. You kind of see with the little arrows. For the most part, what we see comparing June of last year to June of this year is it's fairly stable. A little bit of drop at Galleria. When we look at southbound, we do see a significant drop at Blue Oaks. You can look at kind of the trends over time, and you can see how dramatically that's dropping. And really what that's indicating is the backup that we see there, that we normally see at Pleasant Grove, is now growing and extending back to Blue Oaks. So we see that large drop. Where Pleasant Grove, it's already very slow and it's fairly stable. And then we get to Galleria, where it opens up with that third lane and the traffic kind of picks back up. For the PM peak, with the northbound, you see some drop over at Blue Oaks. Pleasant Grove, the speeds are up slightly. Galleria is pretty stable. Again, you look at these numbers, there's not huge changes in the northbound direction. You go to the southbound, similar to the AM, right? We see that large drop at Blue Oaks. The traffic's really dropping. Again, that's that backup making its way up to Blue Oaks. You see Pleasant Grove is, bad and getting worse, and then, things pick up after Galleria with that third lane. When we look at the graphs that show the entire day, this is 2019 through 2025. 25 kind of in that hot pink because there's a whole lot of lines in there. You see that hot pink, you can just see it's getting worse, kind of particularly Pleasant Grove and Blue Oaks. This is that same graph. It's just 2019 and 2025. So pre-COVID, post-COVID. So you can definitely see, it's just getting worse, which I don't think is a surprise to anyone. Kind of reinforces the whole need for the Phase 1 project. Going to the 80 corridor, we see AM peak eastbound. We see slight increases in travel speeds. That is mostly kind of free-flowing conditions really at 65, so kind of minor changes there. When we go to westbound, we see more significant increases, about a 7-mile increase over at Douglas, which we attribute to completion of the I-80 Ox Lane project. The traffic through here is, it's in the 60s, it's mostly free-flowing. We go to the PM peaks, you see more significant changes, right? So in the eastbound, there's a sizable drop in speeds approaching Taylor, right? So if you recall the Ox Lane project, it did a lane eastbound, but it's past Taylor. So this area is just seeing more congestion, as you approach 65 and the speeds are dropping. In the westbound direction, we see huge improvements and huge changes. At Riverside, it's up 6.3 miles, which is nice, but at Douglas, it's up almost 24 miles per hour. Right? You see that huge change, 27.8 to 51.7, and that's the impact of that auxiliary lane being there and open. So you see what a huge difference a single lane can make when you've got that congestion. This is the graph of the speeds all day. You see it's mostly stable, but you get over on the right side, Douglas, and you can see that hot pink, and you can see the big change that auxiliary lane has made. Again, shows up here as well when you're just comparing pre and post COVID. They're largely the same, except for that westbound Douglas auxiliary lane makes a huge difference over there on the right. On the 89 corridor, really the message here is pretty much everything's stable. There's been no real changes. The numbers aren't changing a whole lot. Again, PM peak, a little bit of change, but if you look at that top line, kind of those numbers kind of bounce around a little bit anyway. when you look at all-day traffic, again, the hot pink is kind of just buried amidst all the other traffic that's there. When you look at pre-COVID and now, you can see the traffic's gotten worse since pre-COVID, which I don't know shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. And you go to the 267 corridor, very much kind of the same message, that there's a little bit of degradation, but not significant. Again, if you look at those numbers over time, they tend to bounce around quite a bit. It's the PM peak. Again, the same, fairly steady. Here's the traffic all day. You can see again, you got pre-COVID in kind of the red, and then the 2025 is in the pink, and it's just kind of in the midst of all the recent years of traffic. Again, pre and post-COVID kind of separated out. Again, it's worse than it used to be. And there's kind of the summary that what I've already talked about. I'm happy to do my best answering any questions if anyone has them related to the traffic.
Just an observation, love that auxiliary lane.
Yeah.
Although the other observation is, not this week, unusually, but last week, it didn't matter whether it was Monday or Wednesday, traffic was back on 80 as I go west. So, any other?
I just have an observation also. I was actually just thinking about this yesterday. Several times a week I have to go early in the morning to Sacramento, and when I was passing Douglas, it was just free flowing at right a little bit before 8 o'clock in the morning, where it is mostly traffic, but right as you get up to like Antelope. And I thought, oh, well, Sacramento could do a little bit better, but wow, it went so fast during through Roseville. So I was actually just thinking about this board and about the great work at PCTPA yesterday morning. So I know that the rest of our community is thoroughly appreciative of all of that work. So thank you so much.
Sounds like a love fest.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
All right, any public comment on this item? No. Okay, Executive Director's report.
Just click one more. There's just one slide. Thanks, Rick. No, appreciate that. And as Rick said, and I think what the data shows is what sort of we all know from we all drive, we're all in the community. From a common sense perspective, we know it. One of the reasons, even though, the two corridors up in the Sierra and in Eastern Placer aren't operating as great as we'd love them to do, they're not really degraded a whole lot because you don't have tens of thousands of people moving up there, right? So you have these really severe days associated with ski season and things like that, and Bay Area traffic going up there, and then you have these crushes of traffic. So you have this traffic that occurs non-cyclical versus the cyclical sort of home-based work trip we see down here in Southwest County, which we're providing for, and what we're continuing to want to provide for with the Phase 1. So moving into the Executive Director's report, grant activity, just a quick update. If you remember, we're also going for $2 million in the RIA grant. That is to fund pre-development activity for the State Road 65 Express toll lane. We were supposed to hear by the 15th of September. They're still dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Hopefully we'll find out about that grant in the next 2 weeks. That's really important because, one, no local match. It's I don't want to say free. It's really our money we're going to fight for and get back, but we don't have to match it with any other funding source. And that means the environmental revalidation that we're doing right now, we can move right into design, all of an AB 194 application we need for the California Transportation Commission, and so get really far down the path with no money in, get it construction ready to then seek other grant funding. US DOT build grant, this is one I'll slow down a second on. We've talked about the great success of 65 Phase 1, working with the Congressman's office to get that 22.48. We as staff have worked to do our due diligence to put together a 3-year grant strategy to figure out, with quite frankly, the sole goal of how do we bring back as much federal, state, and regional money to the community. So all of your member jurisdictions have projects in different states, and so based on the states that they're in, depends how ready they really are for different sorts of grant funding. In doing all of that calculus for the next cycle of the USDOT build grant, it is our recommendation that we apply for the I-80 Rockland Road interchange. That is roughly, I know I'm rounding up, Ken, it's about a $50 million project, maybe it's 48 and change, right? And they need a 19 plus. So one, there's already a lot of local match on that. We can locally show overmatch to the feds. The amount of money, the gap that they need is about the right size for what we can get through that grant program. So one, the two things they care about the most is it construction ready? Yes, it absolutely is. The federal government always wants to be the last dollar in because they don't want to give you money and then you can't fully fund it. So it's fully fundable and it's construction ready. So it's our recommendation for the next grant cycle. We put our PCTP efforts in and around the I-80 Rockland Road interchange for the build grant. Yes, please.
Can I ask Mr. Broadway and you?
Yeah.
Is CEQA done on that project?
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity to have CEQA stand in for NEPA when those federal dollars come in?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
The end says no.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I ask is because on the third track, you mentioned last dollars in. The last dollars in were federal
Yeah.
dollars that triggered NEPA. But we had there are some efforts to substitute. This is inartful in the way I'm saying this,
I
but
understand.
recognizing that CEQA is more robust than NEPA
Yeah.
can stand in for that.
Yeah.
Not stand in. but
Yeah,
you know
what I can tell you is right now in real time, I can't give you a great answer, but I can get with city staff and their project team to understand all of that, to see. But I would say out of everything, what I thought you were going to ask is about State Road 65. Because one of the questions I thought you all might want to understand is, why don't we go for the next phase of State Road 65 like we've got money on it right now? The short answer to that question is that we don't have anything else ready from a construction phase, right? We've got some environmental done, no design, and that's why we were going to pivot. I heard a phone a friend, someone was coming in, Rick. Did you want to jump in here?
I am not 100% certain, but I am not 100% certain, but I believe they cleared it for both CEQA and NEPA.
For Rockland Road?
For Rockland Road, yeah. I'm not 100% sure, but
I can't speak to the NEPA side of it. I know CEQA did that.
yeah, and I'm fairly confident.
Complete, because when we submitted for the SB1 call for projects, we had to identify the NEPA and the CEQA
Okay,
document.
so it does have NEPA already.
We have a consensus.
There you go. That's why you hire a good team. Thank you, everybody. So there is the answer. So moving on outside of, one last thing on grant activity. And this also gets to the traffic information and this larger thing about, right? And Director Cortez's very nice comment about 80 and all of the great work that David led on the aux lanes and how, we're really looking to solve these problems, and we're sitting at a 28.5-minute commute time, which we should all be proud of and we want to protect against. We've pivoted on State Road 65 to continue to build that corridor out the way we can and the way we can afford to as all this land development comes online. But we still got this issue at 8065, and the current project concept is $800 million, which I don't have and I can't go find. It's too much. So how do we do something at 8065 for the absolute safety issue that it really truly is, the operational issue, and what this strategic planning partnership grant for the amount of $500,000 is to look at 8065 operational improvements. What are those small things? What are those innovative things that we can do to keep that traffic moving? Not that it's going to whiz by at 70 miles an hour, but how we can steadily, slowly move in a safe manner to ingress onto 65 in the evening. And so this planning grant that we'll go for will start the workshop work to think about how do we reimagine 8065 like we are in the 65 corridor itself.
It's both north and south.
What's that? Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
Toward Lincoln and away from Lincoln.
Yes, yeah. And it's going to be generally, things like, do we limit access there? Do we look at One simple thing that you could do is you could take the HOV declaration in the eastbound lane that now carries under 65, right? And you could pull that back a mile west of 8065, so you could get all the traffic lined up. And that, because right now a lot of that traffic that does not want to get off on 65 that wants to go by, those people who are rule followers won't use the HOV lane because, you know, by policy they can't legally use it by themselves. So there's policy things we could do, there's IT things we could do. So how do we do small things in the interim while not taking away from or getting rid of any of the larger capital projects that have already been approved, you know, i.e. the flyover. So we're not going to sort of do away with the $800 million ultimate capital improvement. We're going to look at what things can we do in the near term. Moving outside of grant activity, just to give you an update on STBG and CMAQ, these are two categories of federal dollars that, remember, due to federal corrective action, we now work with SACOG on getting that money. It's about $10 million a year historically in those two counties. Those two categories for us. We're entering a federal 6-county funding round. One of the things we as PCTPA wanted to do is get the 7-member jurisdictions together and say, let's all get together, look at our project lists and get agreement on what we want to put forward to SACOG. So instead of SACOG getting applications in both those categories from 7 Placer entities, they get one master list that we internally have all agreed on, so we can, one, help them do their job, make it easier on them, and bring back as much of that money as we possibly can. We've already had 2 meetings with your staff. The second one was just on Monday, brought them into the office, had a good 90-minute workshop. We'll have we'll have 2 more before that list is due to be delivered to SACOG. So that's going very well, and a big thank you to all of your staff who've given their time and energy into that new process. 65 Phase 1 improvements, you've already heard from Rick on that. We're going to be kicking that off, and you've already heard why it's important to get that construction started by 27 so we can go by the older, less expensive standards. And with the State Road 65 express toll lanes, as I mentioned in my off-the-cuff comments, it's the environmental revalidation work's going very well. We're getting a lot of good feedback from Caltrans, and we'll just keep driving that process with them. Lastly, Senate Bill 512. This was that Senate bill has passed both chambers and is sitting on the governor's desk. It was delivered to the governor on Monday. It'll be interesting to see whether or not he signs it. Senate Bill 512 is around citizen initiatives for transportation use taxes. So as a reminder, we as an agency went and we have a 2/3 supermajority. If there was going to be a citizen initiative for a transportation use tax in Placer or anywhere in the state, the state constitution and current law are a little bit at odds. This Senate bill was to clean that up and to clarify the protocol. And so that has passed out, and what that would mean is into the future, if any county, subdistrict of a county, Placer County, if a citizen's initiative wanted to come forward for a TUT, that is absolutely legal and now understandable as to how that would occur. And of course, then that would have to pass at 50% plus one person. One of the protocol things that they cleaned up, which was really interesting, is if a group of citizens were going to come forward, they would still have to put together a project list. And that project list would have to be, attached in the voter's guide to the ballot. Well, if you're a general person, how do you know what the project list is supposed to be or how much it's going to cost? And that would be a commitment, right, to the voters. So this legislation would allow some citizens initiative to work with the local transportation sales tax authority, which is us, in the development of that list and the costing of that list. So it was a pretty common sense legislation, so we'll see where that goes. But I just wanted to make the members aware of that. Into the future, there is also this avenue for transportation funding. I'll yield. That ends my executive director's report.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Matt. Any questions of Matt on his?
Yeah, just one quick question, Matt. You mentioned, and thank you for the update on the grants, and we certainly appreciate the support and assistance with the I-80 Rockland Road work that we're moving forward. Thrilled to hear that NEPA's taken care of, so we know the challenges there. But you spoke of a 3-year look that we're considering as we're
Yeah.
looking at the grant opportunities. I know from a high transit area perspective, that 80 corridor is certainly a challenge for us. Immediately coming to mind for me as we're pursuing this is the Horseshoe Bar Road and Bell Road are two of our areas as well that need focus. You mentioned the shovel-ready nature of it and the work, and I know Amanda and I have had ongoing conversations about it, but are those part of the 3-year look? And
Yep.
we're talking with their staff to ensure that we're giving due consideration to those opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, if we really think about our large capital needs in Southwest County, it's 65, it's 80-65 interchange, it's the Rockland Road interchange, it's Horseshoe Bar interchange, right? And then there's Bell Road. And so we understand what the large capital infrastructure needs are. And if we look at the big dollars, right, there's other categories of money for active transportation and connecting streets. But if we're looking in the tens of millions, our opportunities on the federal level are build infra and mega. And then really at the state level, they're SCCP, Solutions for Congested Corridors, and TCEP. And so the big plan for those big capital projects is really around the federal program and then the state program of Solutions and TCEP. I would say for a Rockland Road State or a Horseshoe, we would probably look for Solutions funding for that. The state will like that because it's operational in nature, it's non-VMT inducing, right? Whereas if we were gonna widen 80, even though that would solve for congestion, the state wouldn't, I don't think they'd ever fund that based on their current stance. So long-winded way of saying, yes, those operational improvements, including Horseshoe, are part of that 3-year vision. So when we go for a next cycle of Solutions, when we bundle projects, Horseshoe would be applicable, we'd want to bundle it. Just the truth to it is it's got to be ready. Is it environmentally cleared and designed? If it's not environmentally cleared and designed, it's not ready. And so what we'll do is we'll work with staff to look at those other opportunities for funding to help it get ready. And then when it's ready, we can seek the larger dollars for the construction activity.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just a mention of I-80, and you mentioned the fund analysis on the operational improvements. You can get back to me on this, but at one point in time, this board was considering truck charging stations. Is there any update on?
Yeah, I'll look to David, who's our project manager on ZEV. We have our zero emission vehicle study, which is ongoing, which is looking at land use possibilities and also solutions for light duty as well as medium and heavy duty trucks. Part of that scope is to look at pilots. David, could you give him an update on where we're at with ZEV?
So with respect to looking at a charging station at 8065 interchange, there's really no suitable location. Okay, now within the 80 corridor, north of the 8065 interchange, we're looking at various locations, and we're working with PG&E on that.
Okay, thank you.
So. Well, there's a string all the way going up to Gold River. Right now we've identified a number of suitable parcels, and then with the mapping, we've identified areas where PG&E has infrastructure that can provide electricity. And so the next step will be then to kind of narrow that down and to work through it. So there's multiple locations. I don't have them all memorized. So.
Thank you. Right. Pop quizzes are always fun, aren't they?
Well, it's actually a really, to geek out for a second, it's a fun, interesting project because you have to know where there's utilities and PG&E.
Right.
You also then talk to the private sector. And if you put that charging station in the wrong place, because really they're trying to get up and over into Reno, and if it's too close in, they're not going to stop anyways. So there's a lot of communication with the actual freight industry who's going to be your customers. So it's a fun project.
And we're doing the same thing along the 65 corridor as well. Yeah. So.
Okay, thanks. Anything else?
Yes.
Yes.
I want to piggyback off of Director Cortez's comments, going the other direction on 80 eastbound, where they did add the auxiliary lane at Rockland Road, and what a difference that's made, because that's right where all the traffic is coming off of 65, not to mention all the traffic that's flowing from Sacramento towards Auburn. It's always been a choke point, and now with that new auxiliary lane, it's such a relief. For all of us who have to drive back and forth to Auburn, it's really very nice, so we really appreciate that as well.
Well, and I appreciate David for his leadership on that. So we always have to refer to it as the award-winning auxiliary lane.
Always the award.
Director Broadway and I would like to give you an update on the Capitol Corridor, right? Sure. Do you want to?
I'll let you.
All right. We had our, what do we, we had our meeting recently. Let me start with actually something that, you weren't there. So September, we're coming to the conclusion of Rail Safety Month. And so I participated in an event earlier this month in the city of Davis that was attended by Union Pacific and the folks who really strive to make sure that there is rail safety. See tracks, think train. That's their catchy little motto, and and it works. And so we had our meeting last week. Ridership is trending up. Things are costing more, and if you're going to a 49ers game, I'd encourage you to start in Auburn or Rockland or Roseville and go to the 49ers on the Capitol Corridor. So, anything else? I'm not sure there was anything else out of that meeting that was.
I would say, I mean, other than, we talked about the cost of the projects, the key projects that we're focusing on, but also the monies that are being set aside to help look at the economics and so essentially reducing costs for the ticket price and where that trigger is between reductions in the price and driving ridership. And so setting aside monies to help drive that. So that's an area of focus and working with SACOG on that as well. So it's something that's nice to see all these agencies coming together to work collaboratively, moving where we can vehicles off of 80 to help with those of us who will continue to use 80, but also making ridership more attractive. So
Yeah, and one of the mitigations for the project that's occurring on the Causeway right now, the CARTA project, is money to the Capitol Corridor. They're going to use that to reduce the cost of the price to ride. Not surprisingly, I guess, not surprisingly, an awful lot of trips come out of Placer County to get to Davis. There's a university there. We don't have one yet, but so, it is it's an important project. So, anyway, with that, we'll approve the April meeting. No. We'll be adjourned till October 29th.